Emperor loved gazing at women's feet. At the banquet, he ordered all noble families to change into white silk stockings. Each woman was inspected, and finally my mother was chosen. He severed my mother's feet, calling them the most beautiful work of art he had ever seen. My father begged for her life and was immediately thrown into a beast's den, torn to pieces. Our entire clan was exiled. 9 years later, the emperor's gaze once again fell upon a pair of pristine white silk stockings. Their owner was me, the crown prince's most beloved concubine. I knelt for 3 hours outside Consort Zhang's palace. My legs were numb. My maid, Peach Blossom, sobbed softly. Consort Zhang was deliberately asserting her authority. "Mistress, let's return to the Eastern Palace. His Highness will worry." I shook my head. My mother is still resting. Waiting a little longer is only filial piety. The head palace maid cast a glance as I finished speaking. Everyone thought me weak, but only I knew my true target wasn't Consort Zhang, but the reigning emperor himself. I had bribed the eunuchs, learning the emperor would visit Consort Zhang in the hour of the monkey. Soon, the imperial carriage appeared. Catching sight of the emperor, I feigned a collapse, my silk skirt revealing the 3-inch, golden lotus, embroidered shoes that captivated the monarch. A voice above rang out, "Which palace maiden dares to be so disrespectful? Your Majesty, she is an attendant concubine from the Eastern Palace. Please send her for punishment." The emperor's eyes fixed on my shoes. "Raise your face." I trembled, looking up, revealing a flash of white silk near my ankle strikingly different from the usual discreet attire of palace maids, yet alluring. The emperor's gaze darkened. I quickly pulled down my skirt to cover it. "This humble concubine's foot is injured. I beg your Majesty's forgiveness." "Rise, no need for formalities." The emperor, who had witnessed me kneeling, snorted coldly. "Consort Zhang is as childish as ever." He then asked, "The scent on you is unusual. What incense do you use?" I replied, "This humble concubine was born with this scent." "Interesting." The emperor entered to see Consort Zhang. I was dismissed from kneeling and even granted a sedan chair back to the Eastern Palace. Outside the palace, I handed my jade pendant to the eunuch. He gave a sly smile. "Mistress, your ambition is vast. Already having the crown prince, you now seek to charm the emperor." I chuckled softly, limping back to the Eastern Palace to serve the crown prince as he studied. The crown prince, recently come of age, had a face as refined and handsome as his father. Seeing my limp, he pressed, "What happened?" I feigned distress, evoking his pity, and he bestowed more jewels upon me. The crown prince loved burying his face in my fragrant neck, embracing me while playfully pinching my ankle. "Don't go to her palace anymore. My mother's temperament is unpredictable. You endure it for a little while." Everyone said the crown prince doted on me, but I knew well I was merely a plaything, indulged when desired, discarded when bored. But I didn't care. I was here to claim the lives of both this emperor and his son. The emperor loved gazing at women's feet, an unspoken secret of the Great Yan dynasty. When I was 10, the emperor held a moon banquet, requiring all officials of the 5th rank and above to bring their female family members. At the feast, he forced all women to change into white silk stockings and then chose my mother. After months of degradation, he grew weary and ordered her feet severed, powdered, adorned with bells, and placed in a jade box. My mother bled endlessly, her wounds festering. My father begged for her to be allowed a whole corpse in death, but he was thrown into a beast's cage and torn apart. The emperor accused our clan of treason and exiled us all. Men became slaves, women became courtesans, and I ended up in a brothel. Later, the Moon Pavilion became famous for a courtesan with a natural, unusual fragrance. I buried my mother's relics in a makeshift grave. I knelt 3 times, a strange gesture, whispering, "Mother, your daughter has failed you." I tightly bound my naturally formed feet, breaking bones and tearing flesh, transforming them into the 3-inch, golden lotuses. From that day, Xiao Yuan Yuan, the eldest daughter of the Xiao clan, vanished. In the Eastern Palace, an enchanting favorite concubine named Moonlight appeared. But as expected, less than a month later, I was summoned into the inner palace again. Palace maids passed by, barefoot, adorned with red strings and vermilion dots on their pale skin. I waited in the outer hall, listening to the emperor and consort Zhang's intimate moments. After a quarter of an hour, I deliberately shattered a crystal goblet. Consort Zhang pulled back the curtain, scolding, "You useless fool, don't you know His Majesty is here?" "I beg your Majesty and Her Highness for forgiveness." I knelt, my face pale. The emperor emerged, smiling. "Enough, my dear. Why be so strict with a mere child?" Consort Zhang, though resentful that this was the emperor's unspoken wish, had no choice but to teach me the rules of serving the crown prince. I feigned drunkenness after a few cups of wine, my natural fragrance growing more potent. The emperor, troubled, intentionally dropped his jade pendant. He forbade the eunuchs from picking it up, claiming he wanted to stretch his own muscles, then bent down, but instead of the pendant, he clasped my embroidered shoe under the table. I cried out in surprise, my eyes flashing with feigned indignation. No matter how dull Consort Zhang was, she sensed the unusual atmosphere. She had been favored since youth, relying on her slender feet and graceful dances. Now older, she already feared losing favor. How could she tolerate another rising by the very same means? After the emperor left, Consort Zhang punished me by ordering me to slap myself. You truly have guts, daring to seduce the emperor. Where does that leave the crown prince? With swollen, red cheeks, I returned to the Eastern Palace, weeping and collapsing into the crown prince's arms, recounting Consort Zhang's words. Your Highness, this concubine is absolutely loyal. Please, Your Highness, understand. How could I have known the emperor would? The crown prince, both angry and fearful, comforted me with reddened eyes. Don't go to her palace anymore. Just say you're gravely ill and cannot leave. I nodded, sobbing, but in my heart, I sneered coldly. He truly was soft-hearted beneath a tough exterior, not daring to utter a word even when his father stole his woman. Yet, the seeds of discord between father and son had finally been sown by me. I did not leave the Eastern Palace, but someone else found a way to make me appear. I used most of the crown prince's gifts to bribe the eunuchs and palace maids, and news of my grave illness quickly reached the emperor. Half a month later, an imperial decree was issued, ordering me to the Jingxin nunnery outside the city for spiritual cultivation and recovery. On the second day of my stay at the nunnery, the emperor, disguised, came on a secret inspection tour and sneaked into my room that very night. 3 months later, the nun with the Dharma name Moonlight was summoned to the palace and made an imperial concubine. I became imperial concubine Ling, ranking highest in the emperor's harem. Rumors suddenly spread throughout the palace that imperial concubine Ling had been sorrowful since entering the palace. The emperor tried every means, but she remained unhappy, often gazing blankly at a peach tree. Hearing this, the crown prince understood immediately. He had once met me in a peach blossom grove outside the city and picked a branch for me. He always considered peach blossoms a symbol of our bond, hence naming my maid Peach Blossom. I instructed Peach Blossom to secretly deliver a letter to the crown prince, filled with longing and the pain of being forcibly taken by the emperor, begging him to rescue me soon so that lovers could reunite. After Peach Blossom left, I smiled like a blooming flower, and the old rumors vanished like smoke. What do you think he'll do after reading the letter? I asked my nearby bodyguard. The bodyguard knelt stiffly, like a statue, replying, no reaction. I smiled, full of sarcasm. You mean he dares not do anything? He was probably trembling like a leaf, fearing his father would discover the letter, suspecting rebellion. He would surely burn the letter first, then offer treasures to demonstrate loyalty. Remembering the crown prince's face when he entered the palace and addressed me as Imperial Concubine Ling, looking as if he'd swallowed a fly, I chuckled softly. I wanted to see just how shallow this royal family's affection truly was. When father and son turned against each other and all etiquette crumbled, it would surely be most amusing. I quietly awaited that day, but someone else had already come to meet their doom first. Thanks to my whispered words, eunuch Zhao, whom I had once bribed, had become a close confidant of the emperor. Though young, many eunuchs already called him their godfather. I lay on my couch, scoffing. How is being a godfather? Are your subordinates to your liking? Zhao Lu bowed subserviently. It's all thanks to Imperial Concubine Ling's protection. This humble one would not dare to show off before an expert. He whispered, that one in the central Serenity Palace, your highness should be careful. Having lost favor, she's prone to madness. Most of the palace was my eyes and ears, and Zhao Lu diligently supplied information. Thus, I knew an hour in advance that Consort Zhang intended to place needles in my shoes. Feigning a sudden illness, I invited the emperor. I sent a palace maid to the Hall of Nurturing the Heart. Before the imperial carriage arrived, I calmly slipped on the needle-filled shoes, blood flowing like a stream. The emperor flew into a rage and ordered an investigation. Enduring the pain, I knelt before him, begging, "Please, your majesty, do not pursue this. This humble concubine feels uneasy." The emperor, suspicious, said, "My beloved concubine knows the culprit. Just speak, and I shall see justice done for you." I shed silent tears, finally murmuring, "It is merely suspicion. I dare not speculate, because I once called her mother concubine." This single sentence exposed the truth and subtly reminded the emperor of his act of seizing his son's woman. The emperor lost face, his expression growing even more savage. He immediately ordered a search of the central Serenity Palace. Consort Zhang, foolishly pleased when the guards arrived, only panicked when she was treated cruelly. She was forced to prostrate herself, while the emperor gently comforted me. Consort Zhang's venomous gaze pierced through the silkscreen. She couldn't believe years of affection meant so little against a minor transgression. "This wicked woman must be slandering me. With ample witnesses and evidence, does your highness still intend to deceive the emperor?" Zhao Lu interjected, bringing forward the palace maid who had placed the needles. The maids confessed everything cleanly. Consort Zhang stared at her betraying servants. "Your Majesty, they are fabricating stories." This humble concubine knew nothing. "Without your directive, would they dare do such a thing?" The emperor dismissed her with a wave, condemning Consort Zhang to house arrest. The emperor ordered imperial physicians to find divine medicine, applying it to me day and night. In less than half a month, my wounds healed completely, my skin becoming even whiter and smoother, captivating the emperor. At my pleas, the emperor finally relented and approved the lifting of Consort Zhang's house arrest. Imperial concubine Ling truly understands things. If only Crown Prince and had even a fraction of her wisdom, how wonderful that would be. The emperor sighed wistfully. I smiled but did not respond. The only thing the Crown Prince and I had in common was our desire for the emperor to die soon. The emperor left the palace for a hunt, and I went to the central Serenity Palace. Consort Zhang had been out of house arrest for less than a day, and her once splendid palace was now covered in dust. Palace staff, adept at flattery, had become indifferent the moment news of her disfavor and house arrest spread. The moment Consort Zhang saw me, she looked as if she wanted to flay me and tear my bones apart. "You wicked temptress, this is all your scheme to frame me?" I made no attempt to explain. "Indeed." Consort Zhang finally showed a glimmer of realization. "Your Highness surely didn't expect that the young eunuch who proposed harming me earlier was also my person, did you? He is one of Zhao Lu's adopted sons, and he proved very effective." Before her horrified, hateful gaze, I continued, "Moreover, you truly are foolish. Did you think harming someone as powerless as me would have no consequences? You and the emperor have shared years of marital affection. How could he bear to punish you? But have you ever considered that I was originally your crown prince and's concubine? If you harm me, who knows? The emperor might suspect Crown Prince and harbors resentment and instigated his mother to act." Silence. "This has nothing to do with the Crown Prince," Consort Zhang panicked. The Crown Prince was her flesh and blood, her most valuable trump card, which was why she dared to act so brazenly. "For the Crown Prince, do you truly have no affection? Your Highness has finally become intelligent." I flashed a smile as sharp as daggers. "No, now I should call you Concubine Zhang." Concubine Zhang charged forward like a madwoman, but she was firmly restrained by two muscular eunuchs. She screamed, but they did not budge. I pinched her chin. "Don't waste your strength, both of them are my people." You want to do what?" She finally knew fear, trembling all over. "What do I want to do? Wasn't it you who intended to do something?" I gripped her hand, my face innocent. Amidst her frantic screams, I leaned back, striking the stone steps forcefully. I clutched my abdomen in pain. A red stain slowly spread through the silk of my skirt. Palace maids rushed in, crying out, "Oh no, Imperial Concubine Ling has been pushed down by Concubine Zhang. Quickly, summon the Imperial physicians." I felt the life within me gradually fading, a pain that was overshadowed by the thrill of revenge. In a flash, I was back to the day my mother attended the moon banquet. She gently stroked my hair, telling me to wait at home for her return. After my mother had been abused for months, the emperor grew bored and originally intended to send her home, but Consort Zhang interjected. "Such beautiful feet, why not sever them and keep them as a souvenir? Otherwise, they will be wasted when she grows old." The emperor praised her cleverness incessantly. At that time, Crown Prince Song-en, barely 10 years old, was innocent yet cruel. He offered a precious cold jade box, pouting to his father, "Father Emperor, please order someone to cut them off. Your son truly wants to see if the Taoist priest's words are true. Can this jade box preserve things for 100 years?" Amidst laughter and jest, my mother lay dead in a pool of blood, utterly defiled. Now I have become a vengeful spirit, and not a single person responsible will escape retribution. Two ominous events occurred in the palace. First, the favored imperial concubine Ling suffered a miscarriage. Second, the emperor, while hunting, suddenly fell ill, suffered chest pains, fell from his horse, and broke his leg. Both incidents pointed fingers at concubine Zhang in the central Serenity Palace. The guards searched under concubine Zhang's bed and found two straw effigies, one of the emperor and one of me. The emperor's effigy was pierced with needles in the heart, and my abdomen was covered in silver needles. All of this had been meticulously planned by Minister Zhao, a man of uncanny precision. Your Majesty, this is someone using dark magic to curse you. Even the search directions were guided by him. Seeing the two effigies, the emperor, with his broken leg, erupted in fury and ordered concubine Zhang to the cold palace. Within days, mournful songs echoed from the cold palace. Concubine Zhang, in her madness, sang of the emperor's unrighteousness and the need to establish the crown prince, leading the eunuchs guarding the palace to report to the emperor. His leg throbbing, the emperor this time completely lost all compassion. He issued a death decree, and Zhao Lu, along with a few eunuchs, headed towards the cold palace. Less than half an hour later, they returned with a report. Your Highness, that person has breathed her last. He described it vividly. Concubine Zhang refused to hang herself, so this old servant had to lend a hand. Those foolish ones applied too much force, snapping her neck clean off, blood everywhere. Before dying, that madwoman claimed the song wasn't hers and wanted your Highness to know the crown prince tried to rush into the cold palace but was stopped by the imperial guard. But this time, your Highness, why go to such lengths? You already carried an imperial heir, yet I shot him a glance. He skillfully changed the subject. The Directorate of Astronomy has already bribed Zhou Quan, and the old palace servants are keeping their mouths shut. Please rest assured, your Highness, you've done well. I never stinted on rewards, casually tossing him a string of jade beads. I want to see the crown prince. Help me leave the palace. I met the crown prince in the Yian pavilion. Amidst the silks, satins, powders, and rouge, he looked utterly disheveled after several days. I gently stroked his cheek. Your Highness, you've suffered. His expression was vacant. He suddenly gripped my hand. It hurts. Yue. The crown prince recognized me, stunned, then embraced me tightly, crying like a child. My mother is gone. My aunt saw with her own eyes how she was chained by those Yan people until she died. In matters of succession, my mother was always careful. She would never have uttered such words. Someone must have given her an intoxicating drug. Yue, you know my mother loved children. Why would she intentionally harm you? I gently patted his back and replied, yes, that's right. At that time, I merely slipped. It had nothing to do with concubine Zhang. This concubine tried her best to explain, but the emperor insisted on her death. The crown prince's eyes widened in astonishment. I continued, actually, I didn't want to keep that child either because it was his son. I found it defiling. The room was silent. The crown prince suddenly stood up, gripping my hand tightly, driving all the dancers out. His eyes were cold, filled with murderous intent. Drag all of them out and execute them? Outside the door, the palace maid's desperate screams echoed. I saw a raging fire of revenge in the crown prince's eyes. He mumbled, I am a useless crown prince. My father took my woman and I was powerless. My mother died right before my eyes and I couldn't save her. I sighed, leaning against him. How can your Highness disparage yourself so? In this concubine's heart, your Highness is the heavens themselves. As long as your Highness desires it, you can become. The crown prince silenced my lips with a kiss, violent yet tender. No need for more words, he understood. The crown prince found a pathetic shred of masculine pride in me. After tiring himself out, he fell asleep, gradually regaining his composure. I sang the nursery rhyme consort Zhang once used to lull him. The mournful melody, like a lament, nurtured the twisted seeds of desire within him, allowing them to sprout further. A month later, I was helping the emperor change his medicine. He suddenly flew into a rage, smashing his jade pendant into fragments on the ground. After breaking his leg, the emperor's health had deteriorated, and his temper became even more erratic. I was the only one who dared to stay by his side. I asked if the emperor wished to enjoy more iron opium. Presenting it, I skillfully prepared the pipe. A thin wisp of smoke escaped from my rosy lips as my delicate hand brought the long pipe to his mouth. Half a month prior, the emperor had viewed iron as a plague, preferring pain over delusion. Now, he was deeply addicted, smoking 3 times a day. Several imperial physicians who dared to advise against it were executed, and thereafter, no one dared to counsel him to quit. Half a year later, the emperor abandoned court affairs, spending every day with me in the harem, smoking ayan. Moonlight let me smoke more. I looked at his sallow face, my smile mocking, yet my voice sweet. To smoke, this humble concubine will extend your majesty's life. The emperor's expression changed. Imperial consortling, how dare you? Since entering the palace, I had been utterly obedient, earning his favor. He even made me an imperial consort when I became pregnant. But he forgot that when someone is unconditionally obedient, one must be wary, for they might be acting. I coldly picked up the golden pipe and struck him. He writhed to avoid the blows, his body weakened by addiction, his broken leg still unhealed. He tumbled to the ground. I calmly approached, knife in hand, my posture alluring. The emperor crawled pathetically, life and death hanging in the balance, a man who had been high and mighty his entire life, now losing all dignity. "Save me, guards!" But his screams were futile. He himself had ordered the palace staff not to disturb him when he was playing with me. Moreover, I had placed my trusted confidants at the Imperial Guard Bureau. This palace was besieged. I savored the sight of him crawling for a long time. As he was about to crawl out the door, I remained unperturbed. Behind a screen, a figure in a black robe with gold trim appeared. The emperor looked up, recognizing the crown prince, and rejoiced. Save me." His eyes bulged in disbelief as the sword, given to him by his own hand when the crown prince came of age, pierced his heart. Crown Prince song and kicked the emperor onto his back. The blade slashed from his shoulder downwards, blood gushing out. He frantically stabbed his father repeatedly, intending to sever his neck, but I stopped him. "Yue, do you still yearn for this old man?" the Crown Prince asked suspiciously. I laughed. "A rotten old man." "Does your highness truly fear this concubine loves him?" The emperor lay in a pool of blood, his eyes staring with venomous hatred. I took the Crown Prince's hand and bowed. "Look closely, your majesty, and I are the true lovers. As for you, who stole your son's betrothed, you deserve to die without a whole corpse." The Crown Prince said coldly, "Father Emperor, from the day you harmed my mother, you should have foreseen this end." I advised the Crown Prince not to kill him immediately, but to keep him alive for a few more months, claiming he was gravely ill before officially ascending the throne. The Crown Prince caressed my hand. "Still, Yu's strategy prevails." He entrusted everything to me, eagerly awaiting the ascension ceremony. Renowned physicians from all over the empire were summoned to the palace, but none could cure the emperor's strange ailment. Rumors spread among the common folk that the emperor's accumulated sins were so great that heaven itself had inflicted punishment. The court was in turmoil. The Crown Prince joyfully showed off numerous memorials requesting him to oversee the regency. But he did not know that in a dark cellar, I was anointing the emperor's body with honey and medicine before throwing him into an insect pit. He couldn't die because the imperial physicians used precious medicines to sustain him. He must have cursed himself for clinging to life. The swarm of harmless but agonizingly biting insects was a gift I had chosen for an entire year. In the 30th year of Yangcheng, during the middle of spring, the emperor's condition grew even more severe. I cried, my eyes red, telling the imperial concubines, "The emperor has only days left." Cries filled the hall. They didn't mourn his death but feared being forced to be buried alive with him. I cried until I fainted, and Zhao Lu helped me into the inner chambers. The Crown Prince in the room eagerly asked, "Is it time for the funeral?" I nodded. Over the past few months, I had subjected the emperor to every imaginable torture. Even if Hua Chu were reborn, he couldn't have prolonged his life. So I ordered someone to carry the emperor into the coffin. Even as he drew his last breath, a strong stench filled the air. "What's that smell?" "Your Majesty is advanced in years," I gently asked. "Does your highness wish to see the late emperor's face one last time?" The Crown Prince pinched his nose, grimacing. "Close the lid, this stench. Put some dead oysters in to dispel the smell, and bury him in the northern burial grounds." He must have regretted not seeing his father one last time, for that would also be his own fate later. The one who sent the emperor off was 19th, my confidant at the Imperial Guard Bureau. He had been with me since the Eastern Palace days, understood the currents of the times, and acted ruthlessly. "Your Highness, it is done." 19th knelt before me, vividly recounting how the emperor had suffocated and been buried alive, struggling so violently that his fingernails carved long bloody streaks on the coffin. 19th hammered long nails through his chest, ending his life. "You've done well." I stroked his hair and sighed. "Next, establish your firm footing at the Imperial Guard Bureau." "Can you do it?" 19th did not promise definitively, only saying, "This servant is willing to cross seas of fire and face 10,000 deaths." With my arrangements in the palace, Song and ascended the throne smoothly. He mimicked the late emperor, sending me out of the palace for spiritual cultivation, then later brought me back under a new identity as an imperial concubine. He made me imperial noble consort, regretting, "I have wronged you." Court officials opposed naming me empress. I smiled. "This humble concubine only wishes to serve your majesty. Even as a maidservant, I would be content." Song and was moved, showering the palace with rewards. I then instructed Zhao Lu to deliver those treasures to the homes of the officials who opposed naming me empress. Zhao Lu was puzzled. "Your Highness, the emperor wishes to make you empress. Why create trouble for yourself?" Everyone believed he was betraying his master for glory, leaning on the Zai clan to bring their legitimate daughter into the palace. I did not explain, but continued to give rewards to keep their mouths shut. Those who forego immediate gain are surely aiming for something greater. In the second year of Giant, though heavily pregnant, I continued to visit Empress Zai Ming'an daily. She, once innocent and carefree, now had a haggard, withered face. Seeing me, she quickly gathered her skirt and hurried over. "I've told you no need for formalities. You're due soon, why don't you listen?" "Etiquette cannot be abandoned." I smiled, offering her a nourishing soup. "The Empress has been working very hard lately. It is my duty to serve the Emperor." Her voice was sad. Though a year younger than me, she hadn't learned to hide her feelings. Song and inherited the ruthlessness of the late emperor, but not his cunning. As crown prince, he was only fond of wine and poetry. After ascending the throne, he forced me to review memorials. Recently, with my impending childbirth, he had handled state affairs himself, becoming increasingly brutal. Just recently, a palace maid wearing jade bells was executed by slow slicing for simply walking around. On his imperial bed, he also harbored strange animalistic desires. Empress Zai, after serving him for months, saw it clearly. I gently held her hand. "Empress, have you ever thought of escaping this burden?" Before her astonished eyes, I bowed and retreated. I understood my own strength. Coming from a humble background, to advance further, I could not rely solely on the Imperial Guard Bureau and eunuchs. What I desired was the entire empire, and for that, I had to win over powerful clans like the Zai. 2 months later, I gave birth to a prince. Song'an named him Hongzai, meaning radiant light. Hongzai could walk before he was 1, and by 2, he knew the 3-character classic. Imperial physicians praised his robust physique, calling it a sign of great fortune. At 3, Hongzai contracted a strange illness. A wandering monk declared, "The emperors of Great Yan have committed too many sins and are destined to have no heirs." Song'an furiously beheaded the monk and ordered officials to find a cure. Finally, a method was found, but it required the hearts and livers of 500 children as a medicinal ingredient. An imperial decree was issued, and officials hunted down healthy children, locking them in iron cages, awaiting the auspicious day for their dissection. The entire nation was shocked. Parents desperately tried to save their children, leading to death and devastation in the streets. Public resentment soared. As for me, the prince's mother, I won the hearts of the people. I offered my own death as a plea, kneeling in pouring rain, begging for the children's lives. Song'an asked, would you watch my son die?" How could I bear to sacrifice 500 lives for one child? This humble concubine cannot bear it. After half a month of pleading, he finally relented. When I opened the iron cages, the rain unexpectedly stopped. The children's parents prostrated themselves before me, shouting, "Long live!" Hongzai's illness also miraculously vanished. Rumors spread throughout the land that imperial noble consort had accumulated virtue for many years, thus receiving blessings from heaven. No one knew this was all part of my plan, and even the sudden clear sky was precisely calculated by the Directorate of Astronomy. After this incident, the final straw for Song'an's public support had fallen. He had completely lost the people's trust. After all, what kind of emperor would dare to extract the hearts and livers of his common people to cure his son's illness and still expect to win their favor? Alas, Song'an realized it too late. When Song'an pressed a dagger to my throat, I showed no surprise, only smiling as I asked, "Does your majesty not despise martial arts the most? Why such an interest today?" "You wretched whore," Song'an roared furiously. "Is Hongzai truly my son, or is he a bastard you bore with someone else?" The Song family typically had light-colored pupils, but Hongzai's eyes grew brighter like stars as he aged. Zhao Lu advised me, "Your Highness, you should confess." The emperor, thinking of your years of affection, might grant you a merciful death. I sighed. Zhao Lu, you merely pretend to betray this concubine, do not truly betray your master. He was greedy for money, and I had bound him with gold and silver for years, long anticipating this day. I have discovered your true name is not Moonlight, but Xiao Yuan Yuan. 13 years ago, the former emperor seized a woman into the palace your mother. You seeking revenge for your mother harbor a vicious heart, truly disgusting? I smiled and suddenly asked him, Song-en, don't you notice that the fragrance on me has disappeared? I was never born with a natural scent. I only used flower essences that short my lifespan to bewitch men. Now that the drama has reached its climax, I no longer need to act. Before Song-en could react, a flashing throwing knife struck and disarmed him. Countless soldiers surrounded him. The Imperial Guard Bureau had betrayed him under the command of Xiao Qi, also known as 19th, who captured both of them alive. Years of biding my time, giving up the Empress's position. This is the day I've waited for. How do you have so many troops? Song-en, pinned to the ground, still couldn't comprehend his defeat. Those who possess virtue receive divine help. Those who lack it lose the people's hearts. Alas, neither you nor your father understood this principle. I looked at him as if watching a worm squirm. Song-en, when he first ascended, was decent, but later revealed his true nature, indulging in lust and neglecting state affairs. In his eyes, the common people were mere slaves and officials were servants. But he didn't know that this empire belonged not solely to him, but to its myriad people. I, benevolent and magnanimous, handled state affairs diligently, winning the hearts of the common folk and civil and military officials. Do you know why I deliberately allowed Zhao Lu to accuse you? I glanced at the man, who was so terrified he had wet himself, and slowly said, because I want you to go mad, just like your mother Empress, one more time. The emperor went insane. Everyone witnessed him brandishing his sword, demanding to kill Crown Prince Hongzai, muttering about making soup from human heads. Recalling the earlier incident of cutting out children's hearts and livers, the 100 officials trembled in fear. At the behest of me and the Empress, Song-en was bound and treated for his illness. Rumors spread among the populace. The emperor enjoyed eating human flesh. His Majesty suffered from the same madness as concubine Zhang of old, beyond cure. The imperial physicians reported, and thus Crown Prince Hongzai ascended the throne. Empress Zai Ming'en and I became the two Empress Dowagers. Song-en was made the retired emperor, given lavish care. Zai Ming'en requested to leave the palace for spiritual cultivation. I had a magnificent palace built for her, treating her with the same respect as a legitimate empress. The Zai clan, having helped me seize the throne, naturally received generous treatment. I became the regent, the most powerful woman in the realm. All meritorious officials were rewarded, with the sole exception of Xiao Qi, who remained commander of the Imperial Guard Bureau. He understood my intentions and harbored no resentment. 19th, I waved my hand. He knelt before me, his dark eyes deep and profound. Though he had been granted a formal name, I still preferred to call him 19th, the one bought for 19 copper coins in Yangzhou. Hongzai was his biological son. Xiao Qi knelt in silence. After a long while, I asked, "Do you know what I wish to say?" He nodded. "Now that the situation is stable, I need to eliminate the last potential threat. The matter of the successor." Xiao Qi drank the silencing potion, his face paling with pain. He wrote, 19th will forever be loyal to your Majesty. He wanted to be the sharpest sword beside me, a weapon needing no words. I sighed, wiping his sweat. "Tomorrow, come with me to the city to see the Lantern Festival." I remembered those lantern festivals, spanning so much sorrow, and suddenly realized I was not yet 25. Retired Emperor Song-en died just as his father had. The people rejoiced, setting off firecrackers. On this occasion, I reformed the government, changing the dynasty's name to Jing, Tranquility. I became the only empress regnant in historical records, opened imperial examinations, reformed land distribution, elevated the status of women, achieving a state where the seas are calm, the rivers clear, and lost items are not picked up. My parents' spirit tablets were enshrined in the imperial ancestral temple. Hongzai was made crown prince, intelligent, skilled in martial arts, and as stable in character as his father. When I abolished foot binding, he asked, "People call them 3-inch golden lotuses. Didn't Mother Empress once bind her feet too?" I sternly replied, "If I could, I would not let anyone bind their feet, including myself." Hearing that a minister of justice was secretly binding his daughter's feet, I declared, "He likes foot binding, does he? Send a few midwives to bind his feet. Tomorrow, make him attend court so all the officials can see if a man with bound feet is delicate. The palace maids burst into laughter. I suddenly saw Xiaoqi slightly curve his lips, a rare sight indeed. I gently pinched his waist. Lead the prince, let's go for a ride. We have things to do tonight. He nodded, leading Hongzai into the spring light. I bowed my head, resuming my work on state affairs. Another busy day for the nation.